Welcome back. You're watching This is a Point here on AM Live, and I'm holding court this morning with Senator Okong'o Omogeni from Nyamira. We do have as well the Governor of Tharaka Nithi. This is Muthomi Njuki. We do have with us the Senator of West Pokot as well, Samuel Poghisio, also Dr. Shem Ochuodho, who's a global leader of Kenya Diaspora Alliance, and the Governor of Kisumu, Professor Anyang Nyong'o. Gentlemen, let's continue with the conversation on the referendum and looking at what we have on page 2 of the Star today, the editorial cartoon. If we begin with you, Muthomi Njuki, what do you think about this particular editorial cartoon? DP Ruto makes his stand on the referendum absolutely clear. There you have it.
Well, I don't know why you threw it to me, and I'm not very good at interpreting cartoons.
Because these shoes, I think they were in your county over the weekend.
I don't know what they mean, but I know that the statement that was made on Saturday by the Deputy President, you know, the media only captures just a little thing that I said, but you know, there was a build up to the same. There has been this clamor for change the constitution, and of course it's brought like a double-edged sword. There are those who say we need to change the constitution to punguza mzigo. But at the same time, there are others who see it as a sugar-coated bitter pill, where the main aim of wanting to change the constitution is to create positions for those who are in perpetual loss in the preceding elections, where it has been, of course, alleged that the people who want to have the positions that could take up for losers in the main elections, because that is what usually brings dissatisfaction that divides the country, where some people feel that the winner usually takes all. While previously we used to have a system where you were allowed to contest for the high office while still having a position of representation in the assembly, either in the Senate or the National Assembly. But as it was at the moment, the system agitates for winner takes it all, which is a big problem. Now, should we be going back to referendum when Wanjiku is feeling so much weight on an economic, in the status of the economy of this country, when there is so much going on that has really made her life difficult in terms of what she can be able to afford and what she can't be able to afford. So to be able to balance that, it's a very difficult task. And that is why the Deputy President said, if really those who are agitating for change the constitution are doing it for the good of the common monarch, then he has no issues. And it should not be mistaken as if those who are saying it is too soon to have a referendum, it should not be mistaken as if they are fearing an election. It is not fear of election, it's only that we are saying that it should be a change the constitution drive that will benefit the monarchy, but not being used as a platform to launch political, to launch politics for 2022. Because it is very common.
It's very common.
Yes.
All right, back maybe to the cartoon. This change of tone, Okong'o Omogeni, what are you reading? Is he speaking from both sides of the mouth? The Deputy President? Yeah, there you have it on the screen.
I think Debarl, the Deputy President, I think, is left with no choice. And I think he's just being a wise politician who can read the mood in the country. I think the mood in the country is not a push to change constitution to reward particular individuals, the way the DP wants to portray. The debate that we're having is to change the constitution to make the government be a bit lean so that we can save taxpayers' money, we drive more resources towards development. But I think the person who is trying to introduce politics in this is the DP himself. And I think is having that perception that the clamor for changing the constitution is going to put a threat to his candidature for 2022. And he thinks that if we change the system of government and introduce the parliamentary system, then that puts brake on his plans to ascend to the president in 2022. But I want to urge the DP and his supporters to look at the bigger picture. Who knows? Even if we were to create that position, the DP of Prime Minister, maybe he may one time be a beneficiary. I think for now, for me, what should guide our debate is to focus on the bigger picture. What really do we want to change in the constitution that we have? And even you look around the debate of the central government and devolved government, you know, we're having a parallel system of government at the county level. We maintain the provincial administration, while on the other hand, we have the devolved units. How does it become an issue of 2022 when we're having a debate on how should we appoint our cabinet secretary? Should we retain the current system where we pick them from outside parliament, or should we revert to a system where we pick them from parliament? The number of commissions we have, should we still retain the number at 9, or should we reduce it? You had, I think, Senator Poghisio point out this morning that IBC with just 9 commissioners is having the task of running the Migori by-election. So I want to urge the DP
with 3 commissioners.
With 3 commissioners.
Yes, not 9.
With 3 commissioners, not 9. With 3 commissioners. So I think the debate is in the best interest of this country. It's not about rewarding people who are in the cold. It's about having a system of government that can be supported by our economy, that does not take all the money from development, and which is of benefit to the people of Kenya.
Thank you. Senator Poghisio, on this, what do you think, looking at that particular editorial cartoon?
Debarl, I like the design of the shoes.
Not the happy socks.
You can walk either way. I mean, nobody can know where you're going.
Without changing gears.
But the truth is that there is a script which is being peddled around. And the script is that the attempt to change the constitution is because people want positions. And I think that people want to push that to the maximum, so as to try and create a wedge between the leadership and the Wanjiku that we talk about. For us to reduce the whole thing of reforms into just wanting to change the positions on top, I think is it's really not a message you can sell, because it's not about that. I think what we're talking about is that it's time to relook at our constitution. The people have the power. The supremacy is in the hands of the people. And if they want to look at it and see how to reduce the wage bill, to see how they actually can reorganize government so that it is seamless and works together, to see how to, for example, make sure that the schedules in the current constitutions can be effected very well. To see all these things can come together. But you see, the referendum is not about just one thing. The referendum will bring all this together into a question. And so we're looking forward to actually doing this referendum. And I have no issue with the referendum because we've been there before. We've done referendums before. It's good for the country.
Thank you. Dr. Shem Ochuodho?
Debarl, I might be a minority in this regard here. I think the talk of referendum is premature.
It's premature?
Yes, premature because the two principles did constitute a 14-member committee, the Build Bridges initiative. But some Kenyans feared that, you know, this is just a thing for 2 people. That seems to be what's emerging. I thought the principles would have let the BBI team go around the country to collect views of Kenyans. This top-down approach and leadership is what has taken us where we are. I think for once, let's allow Kenyans to get the Kenya we want, not the Kenya 2 people or a certain number of leaders want. As Dialogue Contact Group, one of the 5 priority areas we've identified, and that's a multi-sectoral group, is political and electoral reforms. But as to what exactly needs to be reformed is we need to go through a due process. it may or may not entail a referendum. It may or may not entail a constitutional reform. Because if you look at Article 255 of the Constitution, there are items that require a referendum. But there are things, perhaps save for restructuring devolved systems, there are many other things that are being talked about, including structuring of government at the executive national level. That may not require referendum. So this is part of why I want to say, Debarl, that I think the referendum talk for me is a diversion. There are more critical things that Kenyans are facing, are dealing with at now. But more importantly, for heaven's sake, let's allow it to be bottoms up for once. So that would be my position.
Right. Professor, also you mentioned from your article over the weekend on the Star, debate on constitutional review should be structured. And you say, I hope the debate on the review of the Constitution is not going to be cacophonous.
To become cacophonous.
Yes.
What I meant is that, you know, it can be a Tower of Babel, you know.
Yes.
Everybody's speaking, no agenda, everybody's shooting from the hip. It will not help. And I think Senator Okong'o Omogeni is right. Debating the constitutional reform is not debating positions. That's making it very cheap. Debating constitutional reform is doing exactly what the Commission for the implementation of the Constitution was doing. You remember the Commission existed about 3 or 4 years after the Constitution came into being? I wish it had lasted longer, because the Commission's mission was to make sure that the Constitution was implemented by the new government, okay? I think its mandate could have been expanded and say, as the Constitution is implemented, what aspects of the Constitution are found to be problematic and what should be done? Then the Commission could actually dovetail into what building bridges now is. You remember the American Constitution for the first 5 years was amended drastically. The original Constitution didn't even have a Bill of Rights, you see. So that we have only taken 8 years is not an excuse for us not to look at our Constitution. Indeed, it's a reason for us to do so before it gets too late. My point is, let us structure the discussion. In some ways, I agree with Shem Ochuodho. If indeed the building bridges exercise, one of its agenda is to look at the Constitution and the extent to which it is responding to the needs of Kenyans for good governance, then let it come out very clearly and lead the debate. But that doesn't mean that people are gagged from talking. I don't think in a democracy you can do that. People must continue talking about the Constitution and making proposals. But then there must be a receptacle receiving these proposals and finally coming out with what they think are the main issues that should lead to the amending the Constitution or reforming it, and in what ways. As far as I'm concerned, and I've written about this many years, even before the Constitution came into being. I used to write for The Nation, then I wrote for The Standard, now for The Star. And I know if I could collect these articles talking about what kind of Kenya we want, I've always believed, and I still believe, that a parliamentary system of government is the best for this country, for many reasons, very many reasons. One, being a diverse pluralist society, a presidential system is the worst. Because if one ethnic community captures the presidency, the rest are doomed. And you have seen that since independence. Elites try to gang up and put the ethnic community in power and then consign the others to limbo. This is not democracy. It's not inclusiveness either. So you find a system which is much more plural, which is much more inclusive. And that's it, parliamentary. Look at India, very diverse society, parliamentary. Britain itself, parliamentary. Canada, Singapore, Malaysia. And they're all countries which have gone parliamentary, whether old or new, have done much better in terms of development than otherwise. Even the American presidential system was tampered very heavily with parliamentary principles. The president has to consult very widely in order to get through his policies in the Senate. The trouble with Trump is that he doesn't want to consult. This is why he's asking the Americans. He wants to sit in the White House and dictate. I mean, the Americans can't take that. So, look, if we open ourselves to these issues, let's discuss issues, not personalities. Yes. Let's discuss issues, not personalities, not Raila Amolo Odinga, Ruto, no. In any case, these are a tiny speck in the history of Kenya. In the next 100 years, children born 50 years from today will only remember the institutions that were built and the individuals responsible for those institutions. You see what I mean? So the institution of democracy, of inclusiveness, of development, of national unity, what kind of political system will guarantee us democracy, development, and national unity? Obviously, the presidential system has not guaranteed us national unity, if we go by our history. How many people were assassinated in the 60s to safeguard the presidency? And subsequently, this doesn't reflect inclusiveness and national unity, not at all. If you look at Rwanda, for example, okay, Rwanda is not a parliamentary democracy, but it's scoring much higher in development than us because it's more consultative. It's much more consultative from the base upwards. But ours is a presidential system which is very least consultative. If anything, it has to stifle consultative institutions. MPs are delivered in a basket to State House, and the decisions are made, and they come back and implement those decisions. Is that consultation? No. So I think we should look at these issues very carefully and not dogmatically dismiss this thing as a contest between two individuals. No, that's not the issue.
All right, and of course we have two issues which are running parallel here. The Building Bridges initiative, as you mentioned, and now we have the referendum itself. We have the 9 points agenda, and the question that is really coming to the fore is, what will be the ultimate question that will be on the referendum? Should we now piggyback on what is happening with the Building Bridges initiative, with the 9 point agenda, because it has, in a way, really encapsulated what Kenya is really ailing from, you know, looking from the electoral systems, ethnicity, issue of inclusivity as well. I don't know, what will be your thought as well, Senator Okong'o Omogeni? First of all, do you concur with, or do you agree or hold with his view that this referendum is premature? What Shem is saying, is it premature?
Personally, I don't think it's premature. It's, as Professor Anyang Nyong'o has said, the Americans, after they passed their constitution in 1776, they didn't close themselves into a box and say, now we have had a new constitution, we can never amend this constitution. In fact, in 1794, they had the first major amendments of the American Constitution. So these are very good debate. And then, you know, let's learn from the mistakes we have made in the past. What I saw in 2010 is, you know, the same debate here, where you say that let's cross out elected political leaders from key decisions like, you know, enacting a new constitution for a country. And you remember that the committee of experts was given the, you know, almost exclusive mandate to come up with the final draft. And members of parliament made tremendous effort to amend that constitution on the floor, but the law that we had enacted that was guiding the process made it impossible for elected leaders to amend the constitution. And I don't think we should close ourselves into a box and say, now that we have the building initiative in place, then we should lock out political leadership from this debate. I think for me, Debarl, what we need to do is let's leave this open. The people of Kenya, if you read Article 256, even if you want to amend this constitution, there is enough constitutional framework for the people of Kenya to be consulted before finally we throw that question into the referendum. So let the leadership be a very key stakeholder in this process. Number two, whatever avenues we put in place, whether it's through the initiative by the president and the prime minister, whether we want to allow parliament through the committee to lead the process. Finally, what Professor Anyang Nyong'o has put on the table, let us look at a system that will give the Kenyan people a constitution that will be proud of for generations to come. If we agree on that approach, then we'll reduce the political temperatures. Because what I'm seeing from the DP is obsessed with this feeling that when we touch any issue touching on amending this constitution, we are endangering his chances of becoming a president in 2022. If that can sink in and he appreciates that this is in the best interest of Kenya as a country, we should be able to pull together and find a middle ground in this process.
Right. Let's hear from Governor Muthomi Njuki.
Debarl, there will never be a perfect constitution at one particular point in time. even if we were to amend it today, we'll still have a proportion of Kenyans who will say they were not satisfied with the one that has been popularly proposed as per se. So saying that we'll reach a time when we say all Kenyans are happy, we will be lying to ourselves. Secondly, Debarl, on the issue of when is the right time for the referendum and what exactly do we have to put in the referendum, something at the moment I think we have put the cart ahead of the horse, because we're just beating the bush around it in terms of just thumping. There are people who want to change the constitution, the others who don't want to change the constitution. But we have not come down to tell the Kenyans, the common mwananchi, what is this that in this constitution that is so bad that we want to change? And I like it when my colleague Professor Anyang Nyong'o says one of the things they would like to change is the presidential system of governance and institute the parliamentary system. It is important to tell the Kenyans what exactly it entails in this particular case. Which parliament are we talking about? And we have talked about this, the parliament that is normally bought for 10,000 shillings when there's a crucial decision to be made. These are the same system we want to say we love a system where the president of this country is elected by a vote in parliament. Then you'll be denying Kenyans an opportunity to be able to make a decision on the ballot box. There has to be ways we can have checks and balances to ensure that this nation is not paralyzed on those ethnic lines that people normally vote along. Not necessarily denying the Kenyan voters that right to be able to make a decision by themselves. And at the end of the day, I have had so many politicians link this change constitution to particular quarters. It is not a secret that every time this change the constitution is discussed, the name of William Ruto, the name of Raila Odinga comes into play. It is because, of course, at the end of the day, even after we have changed the constitution, there will be an election. Then people are asking themselves, what would politicians want to sneak in that is going to favor the end results of the 2022 election? That is why you can hear the name popping in here and there. But look at the history of this country. When we have had referendums twice in the near past, as I remember, there's a time we had the issue of the banana and the orange. Is it obvious that it is during that referendum push that the Orange Democratic Party was born?
Not really.
It is that time. And that is the origin of the Orange Democratic Party, out of what came out of the push for the referendum that time of the orange and the banana. And it is therefore true, and let us not hide our heads in the sand when we say that we do not have politicians who want to use this referendum as a yardstick to measure which way to go, what is their popularity at the moment on the ground using the referendum. And that is what we were saying, that if that happens, we are taking Kenyans for a ride, because we will go through a very expensive process, just not really to deliver to the mwananchi, but to measure the popularity of some politicians. I know some politicians sometimes, that's why they call politics. They like to sugarcoat it and make it look like this is really for the mwananchi. But I haven't had mwananchi complain so much about some of the things we are complaining about. Mwananchi is complaining about the cost of fuel. They are complaining about the cost of unga, the cost of sugar, the quality of the sugar. Are those things that we should be addressing through the change the constitution? Those are things that can be addressed without having to talk about change the constitution to be able to probably bring in more positions on the top, and below there reduce the number of constituencies and reduce the number of counties. When you say reduce the number of counties, how do you convince the mwananchi? How do you convince the Tharaka Nithi people to go back to Meru and Nyamira County and become one Eastern province? That make any sense?
All right, let's hear from the custodians of the counties then. How do we reduce these counties? We can hear from Senator Poghisio.
Thank you, But people need to know, as I said before, it's the people who are supreme in this country. It's the people through their representatives or even directly, and so we listen to them. And when you listen to them, you hear. Just to differ a bit with my colleague, the governor here, the symptoms that we're talking about, sugar and so on, those are just symptoms of a deeper problem. It's the deeper problem that must be addressed in the Constitution. What is the cause of all that? There must be some leadership alignments that might be required, but not in terms of personalities, but in terms of institutions. So let's look at our institutions. And there's been talk about, for example, too many institutions, too many commissions, too many very highly paid people in this country. The wage bill is going to go. Those are the symptoms. I mean, the poor people in the countryside, in the counties. They have been taxed so many times. They still have problems getting services, and yet we had thought that the devolved form of government would be good for them, which is it's not too bad, but it can be reformed. It might even benefit the governors more because we want a bigger reform. We like to see a lot of resources go to the counties. How do you do that? You must do that with some kind of referendum, and I'm not saying that the referendum is tomorrow either. You see, nobody is really putting a date to the referendum. The idea is there that we must listen to our people when they say punguza mzigo or those kind of things, punda mechoka and so on. Those are not from us. Those are things which come from the wananchi. And when you look at people, especially in the far-flung areas of our country, who really don't get to read the newspapers, they don't watch TV and so on, their voice is coming out saying, you guys, we need something to be done so that we get relief. And how do we do that? We must look at the wage bill. We must look at changes in various ways. And again, Debarl, it is about people deciding which way they want to go. They might say there's no referendum or there is a referendum, but at least we know the discussion going on right now is they think there are parts of our constitution which needs to be reformed so that we can get a seamless transition into a situation where our country makes progress. My fear is a lot of people think that the things we are enjoying now, which is projects which we are enjoying now, means development. No. I mean, are those too many projects that we are doing now? Are they really development? When the Big Four comes without a reform, is it possible for wananchi to embrace it? And the wananchi are saying, is this still part of the pressure to make life more expensive for them? So I do agree that maybe it's not tomorrow, maybe it is the next year, or maybe it's the year with the election year itself. But let's talk about it. Let's not make it look like, simplifying it is a problem, making it look too simplistic, as if it's about two people. I don't agree with that either. Right. It's from the people themselves.
Right, but let's look at the cost implications. I can see Dr. Shem Ochuodho, you have something to say before we come to the cost implications?
Yeah, Debarl, actually, yes, before you leave the shoes, I just thought that...
the shoes, if I'll go back to the shoes.
If this actually came from the DP,
yes,
I must say it must be very innovative, and we need innovation to move the country forward. And the colors look like URP colors, so it's not a bit surprising. But Debarl, I think in terms of what really hurts Kenyans most, at Dialogue Contact Group, we've tried to speak to a cross-section of Kenyans, of course, not as exhaustive as it should be, but three things stick out to be our major undoing. The first one is impunity. 2 is corruption. 3 is ukabila. And for me, if you ask me, those are the 3 priorities we need to address. What I'm hearing about the referendum talk, to a large extent,
yes,
do not, in fact, there are things that we can fix, even with the current constitution. I must say that we have one of the best constitutions. It's not perfect, as no constitution is perfect. But I really wish that in the short term, some of these low-lying fruits, or what government prefers to call rapid results initiative, there could be some quick wins that we could see a sign that we are bringing the country together. And a good number of them, I must admit, were captured in the 9-point agenda of President Kenyatta and Prime Minister Odinga. Those 9 points, there are a number that can be addressed. If you look at that Article 255, what needs to go to the referendum? It says the supremacy of the Constitution. We are not talking about that. The Treaty of Kenya, we are not talking about that. Sovereignty of the people, the national values and principles of governance, the Bill of Rights, the term of office of president, the independence of the judiciary, and lastly, objects and principles of structured devolved systems. So clearly, none of, other than, and I was saying, unless we are talking of the devolved systems, the structure. And in my view, I recall for the devolved systems, we spend about 300 billion. It's a small fraction, really. So the burden, when we talk of Punda Imechoka, in as much as we need to restructure government, even at the devolved levels, for me, the major focus would be that 90% that goes to the national government. So, and that can be resolved without necessarily a referendum. So, but again, I'm saying I'm not averse to a referendum. It may be necessary. In March 2017, the Mutava Musimi Committee, they did a review of the Constitution. They looked at the cost of implementation of the Constitution, the audit. But that audit didn't go far enough. We need an audit. As DCG, our position is that let's do a comprehensive audit. Let's see what part of this Constitution works, which part doesn't work. And bearing in mind people-centeredness. Then we decide 1, 2, 3, we can't, there are 100 things to be changed, but we can't do all. What are the top priorities? But I'm averse to politicians setting those priorities for the people.
All right.
Debarl, Dr. Ochuodho mentions national values. It's very important.
True.
Because deciding whether you want a presidential system or parliamentary system is a national value. Let me ask you, since independence, what has the presidential system cost Kenyans in terms of development, in terms of national unity, in terms of democracy? Were you to do an objective analysis of what the presidential system has cost Kenyans, you'll find that the system has cost Kenyans a great deal. Opportunities for development have been lost because of this system. Right from independence, all these white elephants, projects that never took off, that added to the national debt that we are paying up to today. It's a lot of money because of this system, which was based on lack of accountability and impunity. If you look at national unity, I mentioned it, the number of people who have been assassinated or killed to maintain presidential authoritarian system anchored on tribalism has made national unity very difficult in this nation. If you look at democracy, in the 6th and 7th, those of us who struggle for the second liberation know what it is that we're struggling for. And now that we have this constitution, which has opened the democratic space, definitely, but not guaranteed democratic national unity. So when we are discussing about parliamentary system and presidential system, these are the issues should be addressed. Let us not talk about it in a cheap way in terms of whether the Mwananchi is worrying about the price of sugar and so on. A bigger issue, what makes the price of sugar, petrol, so on go up every day? Because of the national debt, arrived at through projects which were conceived after too much kickbacks. Decision made behind closed doors by few people. So these are the things that must be brought to the fore when we're debating national values or what kind of system that we want in this country. I want the debate to be out there. I don't want it to be gagged, because if you begin debating, you are conspiring to have your person elected in 2022. That's cheapening the concern for the future of this country. So let's forget about 2022. Let us say, in terms of taking this nation forward, looking at the history of this nation since independence, is this what we should be content with, or there's more that we can do? And I say there's more that we can do through honest debating, without dogma, without tyranny. You see, those of us who confine ourselves to 2022, bring in tyrannical language. Yeah? The tyrannical language, he says, oh, those who want the referendum are conspiring for their man to be. No, that's tyranny. We're not conspiring for anything. We're debating issues we have debated for a long time, given the history of this country.
And so we need to uncouple the whole debate about referendum and the 2022 politics.
Yeah.
And this is the noise, the cacophony that you're talking about.
Exactly.
That we hear the clamor for 2022 and we don't hear the ultimate voice of referendum in this.
Yes.
But let me ask you, Prof, also because you are actually contending for presidency, for the parliamentary system as opposed to the presidency,
Yeah.
right? But you say that MPs nowadays don't think. Right?
I didn't say they didn't think. No.
It does not. It does.
That would be
Okay,
very-
let me not misquote you.
No.
Let me just read it. What you said.
Yeah.
You said it does not really matter what MPs think. It does not really matter what they think.
Yes,
yeah?
exactly.
It does not. Okay.
Yeah.
They can easily be handed into one basket and delivered to the president.
But we saw it with the
Yes.
Jubilee the other day.
We saw it with Jubilee.
Yeah,
they were handed into one basket.
Before they went to State House, they were saying all kinds of things. When they came out of State House, they were quiet. I mean, really, what happened?
So what discernible difference will we have then when we have this parliamentary system that we have MPs who have no say?
No.
Oh.
That's why I gave you the example of Britain.
Yes.
Where you have a parliamentary system. It's very difficult to gag British MPs on both sides of the divide because they are responsible for their constituents. And the constituency Labour Party and the constituency Conservative Party is very strong. Before you open your mouth in Parliament, you rush back to your constituency and discuss with your caucus at the constituency. What do you people in Lancashire think I should do? Then you go there and articulate their interest in that particular issue. For example, Brexit. You find MPs from either side of the divide, Labour or Conservative, holding views different from their leaders and expressing it very strongly. And that is why you get a better deal for Britain regarding Brexit, rather than this mentality being handed in a basket and live and then you change your mind. That is, Britain gives you a much fairer glimpse into what democracy really means in a parliamentary system than ours, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's try and look at the cost implications. Okong'o Omogeni, looking at the standard, at least is giving you a snippet of what this will cost according to Chebukati, and I thought that will have actually gone to $1 billion. But looking at what is on the front page of the standard, I just walk over there just to try and show it to you what it really holds. Around 12 billion shillings that this particular exercise will cost us. Where will you get the money? That will be the question. And of course, we are not projecting this that will happen tomorrow, but in the next, maybe 2022, it can really go in tandem with the elections of that particular year as well.
But we are very cautious about Chebukati's figures.
Yeah, I think first...
Questions about?
About Chebukati's figures?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we shouldn't just buy this figure of 12 billion.
Of Chebukati?
He's given us a figure of 12 billion.
Yes.
He has given us a figure of 12 billion. I don't know how scientific this figure is.
Standard?
I don't know how he arrived at that figure of 12B.
Because
So
the last time I checked, actually, this exercise was to be, or maybe a ballpark figure of around $1 billion.
Yeah, so I think I agree with the Prof that we shouldn't just be persuaded by this figure of 12B. I think we can still audit how objective this figure of 12B is. I think we can spend much less. But Debarl, you know, if you look at the bigger picture, and maybe I shouldn't go into the details of what you are looking at.
Yes.
But the governor here will tell you that in most of our county governments, the nominees we have in county assemblies is almost the same number as the elected MCAs. And I've had people, I think I saw the debate over the weekend, people saying we should do away with nominated MCAs. In my county of Nyamira, we have elected MCAs at 20. The nominees are 16. And that is costing us money. So if you audit the number of MCAs we have, I think they're about 752, if I'm not wrong. Vis-a-vis how much it costs to maintain each of the MCAs, then 12 billion would really be nothing. But on the system of government, you know the three happiest cities in this world. I mean, that is Melbourne in Australia, Osaka in Japan, and even Vienna. They are all parliamentary system. I mean, the happiest people in the world live in countries which have embraced the parliamentary system. And I remember in 2010, people were pushing the idea that when you have a prime minister, and this could be anybody, I'm not saying if we have a prime minister's position, it will be Raila Odinga or it will be William Ruto. It could even be Governor Muthomi Njuki here. If you have a parliamentary system, then you have a system which places the executive to be more accountable to the elected members of parliament. You know, in Australia, I think for the last 17 years, they have changed their prime ministers 11 times. Because any time they don't live to the expectation of the people, the members of parliament will fire them and bring on board a new prime minister. So the only area where I agree fully with Professor is that the presidency becomes a fairly mysterious character who lives in State House. He will never come to the people's representatives, the elected members, to be put to account, to answer questions on the floor. So he's detached from the issues that touch on common Mwananchi, because it's the elected leaders who speak for Mwananchi. So if we interrogate the system of government that we have had since independence, a very imperial presidency vis-a-vis the kind of face we have for prime minister like the UK. The prime minister of UK is not a mysterious. He comes to the floor, he will be asked questions, he will respond, and you feel like, yes, we are holding this leader of ours to account. That's a good debate that we should throw to the people. Let's look at the merits and demerits of this system. And there are a raft of issues. If I was to have a sitting with Dr. Ochuodho, there are a number of raft of issues that we can flag out from this 20 constitution. Look at the debate around the so-called provincial administration. I don't know how we call it now. It's under the county commissioner.
Yes.
I don't know how we call it. It used to be provincial administration. We said we'll realign it to the new constitution. We have retained the same provincial administration. I think the only person who was removed was the PC, replaced with the county commissioner. On the other hand, governors here will tell you that they have another system of administration running parallel to the one we have by the... And this is costing us money. So, Ochuodho, these are the issues we need to put on the table. This is not about individuals. It's about a system of government that is costing this country a lot of money, and that is taking away money that is meant for development. Debarl, we will not be able to achieve these Agenda 4 issues, health for our people, housing for our people, infrastructure, if we don't audit the cost of the 2010 constitution to the people of Kenya. How much it costing in terms of the taxes we raise to run this system of government. Dr.
Yes.
That is really not about individuals.
It's
No,
about personality.
Can
It's
I?
not about personality.
Can I?
No, let's just go. We'll come to you. Let's hear from His Excellency Muthomi Njuki.
Yeah, Debarl, you know, some of the issues that we are really sorting out here, or rather identifying as very thorny issues, are issues that we brought ourselves. When the senator talks about the nominated MCAs, the nominated senators, and of course the members of parliament, you know, it's usually not just nomination to just add the numbers. We passed the gender rule, which all Kenyans are life about. In every organization, in every small thing you do, even employment in Nation and TV, you must have 1/3 being the other gender. So in that same constitution that we are hoping to make a change in, then you should be telling Kenyans what shall we do to ensure that we normally have representation of the gender, which can either male be female gender in this particular case, because that is why we normally have the nominations, to ensure that the gender that did not get elected is represented adequately also in the same. And you look at the whole system of elections in Kenya, unless we have some seats that are reserved for a particular gender that does not have a political muscle, then we'll find ourselves in the same situation. The cost of doing the referendum, we should not actually be questioning Chebukati's figures. Reason being,
but Chebukati, they've given us some figures before that were questionable.
Let me finish.
Of bloated quotations as well.
Reason being, we are only looking at what is normally used in that particular day in running this referendum, maybe the preparation. But have you thought about the cost implications of the people who actually campaign in this particular event? Because when you put a country in election mode, the cost is normally beyond even the money that is normally spent. It is in terms of opportunity cost, what is lost. And our biggest fear at the moment is putting a country in election mood, because of course the referendum is elections. When you put the country into election mood as early as the second year after elections, then we are going to be in election mood for the rest of the remainder of the term. Meaning that no meaningful things are going to be done. Instead of people focusing on the big four agenda we're talking about, we'll focus on the referendum, and this country will go crazy with elections for the referendum, which of course will merge with other elections, and for 5 years, Kenya would be nothing but just a political animal in terms of what is going on in the country. What would be the people out there, donors and the partners who want to do, of course, business with Kenya? They'll be saying, let's just wait for this referendum to be over. Let's wait for this election to be over. Another 5 years will go. Nothing has happened. And we must introduce a very important factor in this debate: time. When is the right time to talk about doing a referendum? As much as we'll say, yes, let's do it, what is the right time? Should we do it now, or should we wait and do it together with the elections, so that we do not have to have two elections, pitting the country in an election mood, and also looking at the cost implications as per se. Today we have only one ballot box in Migori, but I can tell you the cost of opening those 800 polling stations is not less. It's more or less the same, just because it's an election. So let us not pretend that we can simply have an election mood 1 year after elections and look at it as just a normal thing that will not affect the Kenyans. It will affect them by all means possible. So opportunity cost. How much do we gain vis-a-vis what we lose by pushing it to be done at the same time with the other elections?
Will it be cheaper? Will it be costly? Let's say from Senator Poghisio.
Well, the only reason that the referendum debate is coming in, the mood of the election is already set. It is the mood is already there. Debarl, if you look at our politicians every weekend, they already set the mood for 2022, and so it is easier then to ride on that mood for further debate. Every weekend there is talk of 2022, and I think that's what really has brought us to a place where we think it doesn't matter then if we add one more thing to it, and we just carry on with the mood. That mood, unless it is stopped, will continue to bring other debates on board. Secondly, while under this presidential system, it is very possible for people, communities to be completely forgotten. Communities in this country. It's very possible for you to be ignored completely. I mean, if your numbers don't matter, you'll be ignored completely. You'll not get any chance to be part and parcel of a system. But you see, if you brought these things into a parliamentary system, every vote counts within parliament. And even if you came from a smaller community, you would be bound together by something, and you'll get your opportunities to go there. So I think some of us who come from those negligible, those places which have been neglected for many years, and you can even look when you form the cabinet, you can see quickly who gets it. It depends on your strength. It depends on your political muscle. But you see, you remember, under the other closer to parliamentary system which we had before, where members of parliament could come into cabinet, you could see actually the diversity during that time. There was a Turkana in cabinet, there's a Pokot in cabinet, there was this guy, small tribes in cabinet. But today, you'll think it's a club. But anyway, not to bring out those issues. But those are some of the issues that hurt us in a referendum. That will be addressed because impunity, as Shem keeps saying, impunity and ukabila, which is tribalism or nepotism, need to be attacked. And how do we do that? We must then agree on the laws, on the set of laws that guide us, so that you don't have this issue of even the problem we're talking about, the problem of saying that members of parliament are ferried to some place and brought back. It is again exacerbated by the system, that particular system. And so we need a referendum. We need to think about it. And referendum, by the way, is not to exclude anybody. Referendum is actually a good thing. It's bring ideas together. It's a meeting of minds. And we hope that the participation, if it comes, and comes soon, sooner or later, we should then be ready to bring our people together. Finally, I just want to say that anything we do must bring one Kenya, must have one nation. And that even when we look at the way sometimes we behave with our counties, it's as though we like to think of ourselves as more than a nation. And some county leaderships, it must also be brought into to the center to think you are running a county, but you're part of Kenya. And I like also to see how we can tame some of these grand thefts that happen. Why is it easier to steal under the system? Why is it very easy to steal? I mean, why not? Why are we not able to find these resources which are being stolen? And so on.
Shem.
I wanted to say, I see the pro-referendum team struggling to find justification, really, beginning with what Senator Omogeni's senior counsel was saying. All that I'm hearing around the table, my take is may or may not require referendum to amend the constitution. Why do I say that? Perhaps if we're going to have the illusion that a referendum and changing the constitution or having a parliamentary system is going to make every vote count, I would say I'm not convinced. Because why then don't we just look at proportional representation? Because that, for me, is the only way I know that would ensure that every vote counts. For example, today we have the Migori elections. You may find Mheshimiwa Ayako gets 50,000 votes and AD gets 45,000 votes. That 40,000 votes is wasted. It doesn't count much. And it doesn't matter whether we go parliamentary or presidential. By the way, by declaring interest, I personally believe a hybrid system is what's good for Kenya, but that can be a debate for another day. But I wanted to also add that the points that are being raised, for example, my good senior prof was talking about the national values, which appear in Article 10, that the Constitution, the protected sections of the Constitution that must go to the referendum, we don't need, I have not heard anybody contesting the national values. We already have very good values. They talk of principles of good governance, things like patriotism, inclusivity and all. So that, in my view, is not what we're saying we want to change. Because if we needed to change that, then we would require a referendum. So the premise is that all we require, in my view, is to implement even the constitution that we have. If we're talking of exclusion, if we're talking of corruption and all these other issues, really even within the premise of the constitution that we have can be implemented. This is part of why I'm saying I see the pro-referendum teams struggling to get reasons. It's like we are doing reverse engineering. Why don't we say, what are our topmost issues that we must tackle? There are 10, what are 1 or 2? Then how do we tackle them? I'm not averse to having a referendum. But I'm saying let that come out of the need.
Right, thank you. Let's hear finally from Prof. Also, as this will act as your closing remarks.
We could make life easier for Dr. Ochuodho by saying, not a referendum, but a reform.
Right.
A reform.
Thank you.
And a referendum where necessary.
Right.
And because you see, you cannot, where the constitution says this can only be changed to a referendum, you have to do so. So let's not quibble over words. We want to reform the constitution. Yeah, sure. I mean, really, sometimes I don't want this to be reduced to high school debate.
Yes.
You know, reform is better than referendum. That would help us. But in the final analysis, you know, Debarl, even this early election fever, it comes because of the presidential system. You elect a president last 5 years, there's a new one who is not going to be stand again. The day you elect him, you start campaigning. But here, the parliamentary system, that will not happen. No, because you'll be building political parties, try to expand so that in the next election you'll get a majority. So the presidential system has all the hazards necessary for it to go away, by the way. This early campaign business is because of the presidential system. In the US, by the way, the parties, the political parties in the US, have to constrain themselves from having early elections for the presidency. But they never really succeed, you see. So I think that we have enough experience globally, and we have enough experience since independence here in Kenya, to say that the presidential system is not good for us. I think those people who are trying to protect it are looking for reasons which are scrapping at the bottom of the barrel.
Thank you. Right. 30 seconds, Okong'o Omogeni. 30 seconds as we're winding up. 30 seconds.
Mine is to wish the people of Migori a peaceful election, and may the best candidate win.
Thank you. Muthomi Njuki, 30 seconds.
Mine is to really ask my fellow politicians in Kenya to think about Wanjiku and not just put the country into a political mood where we have to discuss politics 24/7, 365 for the rest of the remaining term of this particular situation in the country, because it doesn't pay anything, because we're just from elections. Now we're going to another elections of referendum. There'll be other elections. Let's just think about Wanjiku.
Poghisio, 30 seconds.
I hope we do not lose sight of the fight against corruption, impunity, and tribalism through all these other things that are noises which are coming up. I really hope that the focus is back into cleaning up the country and for Uhuru Kenyatta to have a legacy that he can always be proud of.
Thank you. Shem Ochuodho, 30 seconds.
Mine, the same, Debarl. Let's not do things in reverse gear. Let's identify what's ailing Kenya, and you put it very well. Once we identify those critical issues that are ailing Kenya, how do we fix them? So that the referendum and all doesn't become an end in itself, but a means to an end. So that's my premise.
Right, thank you.